Hello, hello, hello. Welcome. Welcome to Can I Get a Word, the podcast. Welcome to Can I Get a Word, the podcast. I am your host, Minister Duran Williams. Thank you, audience, for that gracious round of applause. Now, I'd like to welcome you, the audience, the faithful listeners and new listeners of Can I Get a Word podcast to the show on today. Thank you, audience, for joining us on today. I am so excited. I'm elated. I'm out here in Prince George, Virginia. I have a special guest all the way from Arkansas, from Rocky Mount Baptist Church, Minister Emily Kilgore-Branch.
Thank you. Thank you so much for this opportunity, Dr. Williams.
Yes, we give Emily that warm Can I Get a Word podcast welcome. And just thank her for giving up her time on today to sit and talk with me as we dive deep into her experiences as a woman in ministry. If you know, this month, February, is Black History Month. But on Can I Get a Word podcast, we're taking a moment to celebrate, to honor, to highlight women in ministry, because we know that women in ministry are vital, or they play essential roles. Even if you go back to the Bible, women were always working as change agents and catalysts to make sure that God's plan moved forward. But the reality is, sometimes women were named, sometimes they were not named, right? So on Can I Get a Word podcast, we're going to name those women this month. We're going to celebrate them. And our hope is that other women would be inspired, would be encouraged to go further for Jesus Christ in the ministry, to touch lives and save souls. With that being said, if you're looking to connect with Can I Get a Word Ministries, you can go to the website. That's canIGetAWord.org. You can connect with us on Twitter at Can I Get a Word. Can I Get a Word Now. Facebook is Can I Get a Word Now, and Instagram at Can I Get a Word. And would love to just connect with you, to do community service with you, to do some type of educational awareness event with you. So on today, our special guest, Minister Emily. How are you doing on today?
Hey, I'm doing great. It's a good day.
It's a good day, okay. Welcome, caller. You're live on Can I Get a Word, the podcast. Who am I speaking with?
Deacon Reed.
Deacon Reed?
Hey, Deacon Reed. How you doing?
Hey, how you doing?
I'm all right. Thanks for joining us today.
All right.
We just got started, actually. You're right on time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so you have an opportunity to be a part of today's recording and broadcast.
Okay.
Okay, so at any moment, we're just kind of getting started, but at any moment, if you have a question, feel free to ask a question or provide input. We like this to be a very interactive podcast. But we're taking a moment to give Emily an opportunity to just tell the listeners about herself, her ministry, and how she got to where she is today.
Okay.
Okay. So, Emily, where are you originally from?
So I am originally from Hot Springs, Arkansas.
Woo, woo.
It is actually the boyhood home of former President Bill Clinton, 50 miles southwest of the capital, which is Little Rock, Arkansas.
Okay. Okay. Now, how did you get to Virginia all the way from Arkansas?
Yes, I got here by way of my husband, Dr. Duran Branch. So let me go ahead and dispel the first assumption. No, he is not military. That is usually the first question people ask me. However, I met him in Arkansas. He had an internship through Walmart home office in Bentonville. I was actually attending a church in the Northwest Arkansas area, which the Walmart home office is in Northwest Arkansas as well. I had just finished my bachelor's degree at the time, was attending church in that area. One of his co-workers there, invited him to church. So, hey, that's a message in itself right there.
Right.
Evangelism, is still important. That's how we connected. We stayed in contact throughout the years, and that was in 2007. So here I am today.
Okay. There you are today. Welcome, caller. You're live on Can I Get a Word, the podcast. Who am I speaking with?
Hello?
Yes, caller. You're live on Can I Get a Word, the podcast. Who am I speaking with?
You're speaking to Miss Sandy Turner.
Okay.
Hello.
Thank you for joining us on this morning. We're just getting started. Minister Emily was just in the process of telling us, how she got to Virginia. So Emily, what would you say led you? So you say you met your husband through church. What would you say led you to ministry?
Well, it's a very complex question. Full of the answer is really full of lots of layers. But I guess to be able to answer it in the most simplistic way is life led me into ministry. I feel like all of the experiences and seasons that I experienced in life led me into ministry, and ultimately those experiences I felt compelled to help someone else, and that's why I chose to go through ministry.
Okay. And how long have you served in ministry?
It'll be 2.5 years. In August, it'll be 3 years.
Okay. So, who would you say helped you to get to where you are today?
Oh man, it's a lot of people to name. It's been a village basically. I can't go without naming my family, of course, for helping me get to where I am today. Of course, there's a lot of influential people, mentors from my church family back home, as well as people in Fayetteville, even people during the brief time I lived in Branson, Missouri, as well as my time living here as well. So, my parents, Miss Pitts from Hot Springs, Miss Perkins. I hate to go down that slippery slope and naming names because you will always end up missing somebody. But, I definitely would say, those people, Dr. Lofton, God, number one.
Right.
They all, I can think of pivotal moments in my life that some way or somehow they looked out for me.
Now, what advice would you give to women looking to go into ministry or interested in serving in ministry and on different levels, like just besides just like coming to church, like, but looking
Right.
to actually go further?
Okay. Well, the first thing that I would say is realize that ministry, number one, is multifaceted, and that ministry doesn't just mean preaching from a pulpit.
Right.
Yes, that is one tool of passing along the message, is in the pulpit, but remember that ultimately the goal is bringing people into the kingdom, and we can't bring people into the kingdom unless we're doing outreach.
Right.
So, we've got to be able to get out of the four walls to be able to bring people in. So we have to be in tune with what that ministry is on the inside of us to be able to draw people in. Bible says, if I be lifted up among the earth, I will draw all men unto me. So as long as you're in tune into that and you're working that effectively without the title, before you get minister, reverend, evangelist, apostle, whatever that is, work on that first. I did hear, and I can't think of what the minister's name is, but she said, how can you say you're called to the nations when you can't even be called to your own community first?
Wow.
So what is it that you're doing within your own community? So many times you can go into, and I know this exists in many churches, maybe not just the church I'm in, because I've seen it different times. You experience a situation where someone feels like maybe their gift isn't alive or existing in their present church, or they feel like and I'm just using this as an example, maybe this person is a single parent and they're divorced and they feel out of place because they go to this church and every person in this church is married or they have children and they,
Wow.
they feel out of place. Well, maybe, just maybe they feel out of place because that's an opportunity for them to, come forth with their ministry, or for them to, begin outreach for people that still feel, that void within their hearts as well. Because I guarantee you there's someone else out there in the world or in your community that feels that same way. So, we have to realize that someone needs us in that same way as well. So, we've got to be able to master that piece, or begin the process, the journey of mastering that piece. Because when you become a minister, you'll have to continue that and stay on that continuum. Because believe me, when you become a minister, all it's going to do is just, put a spotlight on you,
Right.
So to speak. So you've got to be dedicated to that process.
Now, when you felt called, you felt like God was calling you to ministry, who did you share that with?
I definitely shared it with my husband. But you got to keep in mind too, I had been thinking about this, or it had been on my heart for a couple of years. So I actually talked to him about that before we got married. Both of us had discussed how we both saw in our future that we would be in ministry.
Right.
So I had talked to him about it first. My family, of course, was aware of it as well, because they had seen the things that I did in my church prior to that. But as I developed and matured and got closer, and felt like, okay, I think this must be the time. I started talking to my pastor about it more in depth, and of course he advised me to pray about it more. And I call him my biggest cheerleader, because he is, no matter what we get into, an engagement, activity or something, he is always there to cheer us on. If he can't be there physically, he's always there to offer us a word of encouragement, and I really appreciate him for that. So big ups to you, Pastor Carlos Jordan of Rocky Mount Baptist Church. But he, told me to pray about it, and he said, he supported me whatever way I decided to choose, but that he wanted me to know that it was a serious decision. So that's what I did, and then I believe it was New Year's Eve of 2014. I decided to make it public at our church and watch night service somewhere in there. And so I went through my training with our pastor, and then I did my initial sermon in August of 2015.
Wow. Now, talk to me about wow. I know there was a lot that went on in between all of that, a lot of prayer,
Right.
a lot of just counseling with your pastor, a lot of talking with your husband, a lot of talking with your family, a lot of serving, a lot of reaffirmation, a lot of, I know discouragement comes sometimes, a lot of doubt, a lot of fear.
Yes, all of the above.
All of the above. Like, so how did you navigate through all of that to get to that, to get to that pulpit to preach that initial sermon?
Oh,
Because I'm asking because I know, like somebody might be like, no, I disagree with you, but like seeing a woman in ministry, and I've watched you, like you go, not just at Rocky Mount. You'll preach at Rocky Mount. You'll preach at Olive Branch. You'll preach, different places. And for me, there's only a few women that, you know what I mean? Like that's just, you see more men than you do women these days in the pulpit. So how do you stand strong and do what you do?
Okay. So, here's this. So, I just said a couple of seconds ago that you have to realize that before you have the title, that, all of us have a ministry regardless of whatever our title is. The Bible says that, he will pour out his spirits on his sons